Hello. Alright. How the fuck am I here? Select a timeline. I don't know about that shit. Go downhill. Okay.
Yeah, that works. Yep. That's me. I'm Supreme. I don't have much to say about myself. If you're curious about me, you know how to find me.
Well, where do people find you?
You can find me at twitch.tv/Wicked Supreme or on Twitter, Twitter/Wicked Supreme or whatever the user is, or on YouTube as well. It's all the same.
Gotcha. So, couple 7 questions for you.
Shoot.
The first question I had is, where did you come up with the name Wicked Supreme?
I was looking for a name change or rebranding because my branding on YouTube, or I'm sorry, on Twitch was like fighting game themed for a little while. I used to try to run a channel called The Battle Lounge, and I did like a podcast series, and it was like competitive fighting game stuff, Street Fighter, Tekken, that sort of thing. But then I wanted to make my channel more about like, you know, me personally and, you know, being like an individual streamer, that sort of thing. And I went by Supreme, just the name Supreme, but it was taken on Twitch. It was October. It was near Halloween. I just thought it would be a fun like Halloween name change, and it's stuck ever since.
How long ago was that?
Last Halloween. So the Halloween before this previous one, 2020.
Gotcha. How long have you been streaming to Twitch?
2017 or 2018 or something like that, I want to say.
How'd you get into it?
Competitive fighting games.
You any good at them?
You want to find out?
I mean, kinda.
Sure.
I mean, kinda. Tekken's one of my favorites, and so is Soul Calibur. I've been a big fan of Soul Calibur for years, but yeah, the reason that I came across you at all, you're not nearly in the politics sphere as much as many of these different streamers are, surprisingly. The reason that I actually came across your channel was back during the Dylan Burns fiasco. I really hadn't heard of you very much. I was with Politically Provoked at the time, and I had seen the coverage, and I thought that you had some really, really, really good takes on that, like surprisingly good. So I kind of watched a lot of that coverage from your channel. How did you stumble across that whole fiasco? Did it blow up beforehand, or did you kind of have knowledge coming into it?
Dylan and I are really close. We like to joke that he's my nephew. When Dylan first came to Twitch, he was interacting with one of my best friends, A4 Andre, is another Twitch streamer whom I had been doing content with for a couple of years at that point. And, you know, Dylan and I are close. And so when he came out with that stream, I reviewed it, and I have experience with information gathering and intelligence reporting and that sort of thing, basically information assurance and, you know, confirming evidence and that sort of thing. I have, you know, no real legal expertise whatsoever, but I saw what he had presented, and it, you know, it looked just absolutely wrong to me. I mean, that's really all there is to it. So I took Dylan aside and, you know, really tried to help him understand a pogrom and everything. Not a fine line. I think there's a pretty thick line between suspicion and substantiation.
Cry for pretty heavily for your coverage of this. I didn't even.
So I don't think those two are the same thing.
I didn't say that they were the same thing.
I think those things are quite different.
I said and between both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Not only is there suspicion, but and also it's likely to be true.
So I think, and I'm going to help you
with, besides deal with these people, all putting in.
So what?
I don't know what that is. Fucking boring.
Had official representation or something, but it seems like Pixie was kind of ranting to a friend, like you said, and then that was like
it would not count
moved along
at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
President Sunday sent me this message. It contained a screenshot of someone else live coaching him on talking points about extortion. While he was debating me, his lowly editor that apparently had no idea what he was talking about. This is when I started to realize that Sunday never actually had a good reason for publishing this video. This was potentially a pretty serious issue. We had just exposed a major sex scandal involving a huge political streamer. Every detail mattered, even in Sunday's own words.
Like, working with you means that you're exposing details of the backroom process of how we're working, when I think it was pretty clear when we were talking there that was very sensitive. It's like,
it was sensitive because we didn't want people to have the story break early. It wasn't sensitive because we were doing something.
No, it was sensitive because every little detail can be pried apart and analyzed from a million different angles and spun any different number of ways. In advance of doing that research, I would tread very lightly with making claims of that sort for a couple of reasons. First of all, because accusations of illegal...
The other thing is what Kilo's going to come through with here is almost certainly the clip from Sunday where he's talking to Mr. Girl and he basically explains how awful it is to go forward without the victims on board, right? Sunday explains like the whole rationale for why Sunday should have waited to Max. And that's a clip that's really hard to recover from, like Sunday in his own words. Although, who knows, maybe Sunday's got his own cult going, because I've certainly seen with at least Destiny, he can pick himself apart with his own words and people don't give a fuck, so.
Looks like it might be something.
Hang on, did he say coercively or covertly? Because those mean very different things.
He might have been covertly.
Okay, that's important because coercively implies coercion. Okay, you got to be careful with this. If you're gonna accuse people of lying specifically, you need to have like these specific
I am
thing that they
being
say.
very now. It's funny that the rest of the community doesn't really need that standard, but.
So I tried to look back and find where this extortion take came from. The first mention I can find of it comes from this message. Straight away it says that Dan told Pixie, ask Steven for a reasonable amount of money and he'd probably pay it. Sunday immediately and confidently states that this is blackmail. I don't know why he keeps pretending that private settlements don't exist. Maybe it's a Canadian thing, but here in America, you are allowed to seek compensation for damages privately without going to court. So far, there is no threat, no leverage or coercion being applied. He literally just sees Dan suggesting that Pixie asks Steven for money and thinks blackmail. To be clear, in no way does this exchange constitute blackmail. A few days after the video came out, Sunday mentioned that he wanted to put out another video, clarifying that he wasn't trying to demonize Pixie, which is obviously not true, but also expanding on this extortion argument. By this point, I think Sunday probably started to notice quite a bit of criticism directed towards him because he had begun posting long, autistic ramblings about what extortion is and claiming he wasn't trying to make Pixie look bad. He also put this post in a comment under the video, and in it he links to some case law that supposedly supports his argument. But if you take even one look at it, it has nothing to do with Pixie's situation, because not only did the perpetrator explicitly make a threat, which Pixie did not, but the demands were under threat of reporting them to law enforcement for committing a crime. Destiny's likely not guilty of a crime, meaning Pixie was under no obligation to report him to the authorities. She was simply weighing getting privately compensated versus choosing to sue him, as is her legal right to do. So linking this case is actually just retarded. And all of this is in addition to the fact that I knew Sunday's story was sort of changing over time, because originally he did want to more or less blame Pixie for helping Destiny keep future victims quiet. Notice specifically that in his long clarification post, Sunday has silently added a fourth course of action Pixie could have taken, which is privately settling, when the video originally only
she was doing so she can't continue to be coerced in the food without threats. I mean, it was basically like, what is negotiating a settlement, right? Like, negotiating a settlement, you could say, I won't negotiate for less than this, right? But is that a threat? I won't negotiate for less than this number. Is that a threat? I feel like that's not a threat. I feel like that's your parameters for negotiating.
Pixie could have taken, which is privately settling, when the video originally only had the first 3. So by this time, I'm starting to see this really detailed picture of Sunday deciding on a course of action and then coming up with the reasons and justifications for it afterwards. Ever since the leaks dropped, he desperately wanted the story to go public, and he started messaging Erin immediately, pushing her in certain directions or suggesting that Pixie make a video about her statement. And when none of these things worked, he took matters into his own hands and decided he'd settle on this abstract extortion argument. But I don't think he really thought it through. He claims he's consulted lawyers about this. Originally, he told me, Kilo, you're not a lawyer. I was raised by one and took law courses in university. But then when he was talking to Aiko,
boy.
She asked if he spoke to lawyers, and he said to people who know lawyers.
Who did you speak to?
Several people I can't name, but
lawyers.
People who know lawyers.
But then, when he was talking with Willie Mack, he said he spoke directly to lawyers, but won't mention who. And for some reason, he puts the S in parentheses. Was it one or multiple Sunday? That's fucking weird. He also leaked his entire DM history with
This is
Nicholas
so
Dorio
sad.
after Nick
Pathetic.
I think it shows how conflicted he was, like how he probably knew he was wrong, given that he was continuing to like go back and forth with Kilo. That like all of the parts about this where he's like arguing, it's like he has to like beat this guy in an argument to prove to himself that what he's doing is okay. Yeah.
called him out for some of this bullshit. He leaked all of Willie Mac's DMs with him on stream for seemingly no reason, and then he began arguing with random chatters in Discord servers and then leaking their DMs, and had to ask to be timed out for a week, seemingly because he couldn't stop arguing with random chatters. Probably because, if you haven't put it together by now, this guy is
Oh shit, he did that again today. Actually. Hey, he asked for a timeout again today. He was like, hey, time me out. I don't want to do this.
What a
absolutely
child.
crashing out. He is insecure, erratic, defensive, and behaving like a total weirdo in the aftermath of this video coming out. This flies in the face of the image that he wants to present as a streamer. The guy who calls out other people for poor behavior, who holds people accountable for taking the correct and ethical path. Sunday has a smug self-assuredness about his presentation, and he pretty much never walks anything back or admits to any wrongdoing. But in one of our arguments, he did freely admit that he doesn't actually make videos on things that he thinks are wrong. He just guesses what other people might think is wrong and makes videos about that. You have made videos about people who are doing wrong things to people.
Yeah, but typically when I say wrong things to people, I've got a particular understanding of that. Namely, these people have avowed these principles. These people are defying those principles by acting in this particular way. Therefore, according to their own lights, they are doing wrong.
You're not interested in talking about Destiny because of how he tries to portray himself, and actually he's not living to those values.
Point of fact, I didn't actually make a moral judgment in that video. Never once.
Do you think abuse is bad?
Well, abuse is bad by definition, but what I mean by abuse in the case of sexual abuse is like quite literally a legal term. Like you're taking intimate photos of someone, leaking them without their consent, and causing them.
Oh, I got linked this. This is today. I'm out for another week before I lose my temper. Oh boy. Lots of people ask for this in my stream too, or my Discord. It's like, bro, just walk away. Walk away from the
humiliation
computer.
and social damage and potentially putting them in danger.
If you're making an accusation, towards Destiny or whoever, that somebody that they are harming somebody, you're not just holding them to their own moral standard. You're saying they're doing something that I don't like, and I'm calling that out, which is harming people.
That motivates me to call it out, but specifically what I'm doing in that video is pointing out things that other people don't like.
I'm now pretty convinced that this guy has no morals or guiding principles whatsoever, and he's basically just a leftist grifter. He doesn't even think audiences care about the truth. If money is the
Audiences don't care about the
only
truth
reason
at all.
you ever talk about anything.
Money is the only reason you ever talk about anything on YouTube. Because these people do not give a shit about you. They don't give a shit about the truth.
Do you think that anybody genuinely cares about the Destiny situation?
I have very few people.
Okay.
I think very, very few people, relatively speaking.
If a creator doesn't think their audience cares about the
Well,
I mean, people in his audience, they definitely don't care. But other
more
people,
here than he thought, I think is accurate.
well, I think here's the thing: is a lot of people dislike a lot of people dislike Destiny, right? I would say you could probably line up the people who are like, oh, I need more information. Those would be people who are like 50-50, right? And then the people who already hated Destiny are like, yeah, here's the proof we needed. And the people who love Destiny are like, I'm going to need like convictions in court before I turn on this guy. Like people don't actually
Sure.
care about what the truth is. It's just it.
I think that
It's whatever.
the largest percentage of the actually nice people are still here, I would say. Like, there are a lot of nice people that, like, you won Sophia in the divorce. I think Sophia's lovely. But there's also, like, a bunch of actually, like, decent people. So, like, yeah, there's, like, a bunch of people in DGG that are shit. But, like, would you really want those people anyway? They're just, like, the dregs of society. Gross.
truth, then there's nothing stopping them from
What are you
lying to you.
laughing at?
Which makes the answer to
People in chat are harassing you.
the final question obvious. Why
Oh,
didn't we
that's
get
funny.
Pixie's
Where?
consent, or at least warn her?
All I see is
That's
like
fine.
me, Kelly. Okay, Tony, sure. Why not?
Wow.
Oh, it's just BB Poison saying like Kelly. Is that it?
Couple
Was that
couple other
it?
people said it.
Was that
couple
it?
other people said it. I'm just saying a
Really?
couple other people said it. I'm just saying a couple other people said it.
Her.
Anyway,
Simply because President Sunday
no.
doesn't give a fuck.
I'm not
and actually
even
warning
slightly
Dixie-
comparative to the people that are left in DD.
Are you in the
that are just
presentation?
Incredibly. Well, let me. You stop pressing play when I'm in the middle
Video
of
has been playing for like
speaking.
10 seconds when you started cutting in. Crazy.
No, I was still speaking and you just press play. You do it to me all the time.
That's
Whatever.
probably true,
Anyway.
yeah. Guys, let's take this opportunity to say we're back on the clock today, okay? $30 for the first extra hour on the stream. If you want to contribute to that, there's a couple ways you can do that. Okay, exclamation point donate in the chat. I'll pin the link for the TTS. Okay, TTS sub. Do whatever you got to do. Let's get to that first hour on the stream right away, okay? Gift subs. Sub yourself. If you don't have a sub in the chat, you can individually sub. And I love individual subs. I really appreciate any individual subs we get, okay? Thank you guys for being here. I want to point out,
I was complimenting everybody, okay? So if you take that as a moment to shit on me, that says a lot about you, okay?
Okay. Important. Screenshot. Important. Oh. Listen, I don't agree with Ryle on a whole lot, okay? But this one was a banger. This was like just straight up true.
You immediately press play after you finish speaking. Sometimes I'm lucky and I manage to speak
do you know
just
why?
Before, and then you're quick.
Because sometimes the dead air is bad. So if I'm like putting a final topping on a situation, if I'm just like, yeah, sure, and then I hit play, that's like, so you don't feel like I ignored you, right? But I'm planning to hit play right after. And then sometimes after that, I'll be like, yeah, okay. And then I'll hit play, and then you'll continue to go and talk, which is...
I'm just saying, fine. I don't have any control of it. So I either don't speak, or I am willing to speak for a short amount of time over the video playing. And then we can go back and listen to it again if we have to. It's not my fault he's so fucking trigger happy with the fucking play button.
Creator doesn't think their audience cares about the truth, then there's nothing stopping them from lying to you. Which makes the answer to the final question obvious. Why didn't we get Pixie's consent, or at least warn her? Simply because President Sunday doesn't give a fuck. And actually, warning Pixie would have been detrimental to his mission, which was to be the first one to publish the story. If we had warned Pixie, she probably would have just published her statement, meaning we no longer had breaking news. In fact, explicitly, during our meetings on January 18th, both Beckett and Sunday told me that they specifically wanted to beat Bad Empanada, who had been sniffing around the story in days prior, and be the first ones to break it. This is probably why the justifications for publishing were really weak, and why the editorializing is fairly inaccurate.
Yep.
A few days ago, Sunday even mentions that we were rushed, but he realizes it sounds bad right as it leaves his mouth, and then he tries to fix it.
I could have done better. I get it. I was tired, I was sick, we were rushing, we didn't know how long we had. We weren't rushing. We stayed up all night for multiple nights. It was a miserable couple of days.
So clearly, Sunday wanted to be the guy to take down Destiny. Desperately. So much so that he was willing to rush and throw together a half-assed, flimsy justification for doing a bunch of insane shit, while slandering and endangering a sex abuse victim in the process. And now he's frantically morphing his arguments as time goes on to defend himself, both because he is self-conscious and also because his brand requires that he maintain the image of being morally and ethically superior. And seeing how irresponsible he was with Pixie made me realize something, that he's been this way the entire time.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though. I feel like a lot of people realize that. I feel like a lot of people who like Sunday have realized that. Or they realize it, or like it's what they like. It will be a very similar thing to with Destiny, right? Where it's like people would tell their friends. It was like the justification so you could tell your friends. It's like, this guy's dealing with like Andrew Tate online. He's doing it. But realistically, they're just like, this guy's unhinged and he'll call these people fucking pedophiles if he has to. He'll do whatever he can to take them down and I don't like them. That's really what they liked about Destiny, right? And it's like the same thing with Sunday. That's what people actually like about him, is he'll go completely fucking unhinged. Yeah, but they'll tell themselves like, no, it's because he's like this morally superior guy who's like really special and he does really cool things. And it's like, nah, I think most of his audience are just like, this is my autist. This is my autist. Okay, there are many like it, but this one is mine. That's what is actually going on there. Shockingly.
With my newfound contempt for President Sunday, I started thinking back on some of the feuds he's been involved in throughout the years. He's kind of known for finding a target and sort of sicking himself on them and going after them for extended periods of time. And the longer I thought about it, the more it became clear that many of the things he's attacked people for in the past, he himself is now profoundly guilty of. And since President Sunday claims to only go after creators who aren't living to their principles, we would be remiss if we didn't try to hold him accountable for his own, or lack thereof. Not too long ago, Sunday lambasted Westside Tyler for mishandling and misreporting a grooming victim's story. Tyler ran a hit piece on larger creator Demon Mama, related to one of her moderators sending inappropriate messages and images to a minor. Tyler spoke with the victim for his video, and made a series of journalistic and ethical errors in the process. I remembered what
Baron Za, thank you for the gifted sub. I appreciate it, buddy.
Sunday had to say about it at the time.
It's kind of just laying it bare. Like, this is not about, there's nothing here to do with actually protecting the victim. This is about clout and building connections with bigger streamers and making a big hit piece on like Vosh, etc. That's all this is about. Which means that we never got their testimony. We got a corrupted story that was molded by you. You abused a victim of abuse in order to spin content for your channel. Actually,
it hurts. It hurts when he does the Westside Tyler bit.
Disgraceful. It's actually the most disgraceful thing you can do. I've got a victim of child abuse giving me a
This is why you don't piss off your editor, all right? They're going to remember everything because they've sat there and edited all of your shitty videos for you.
I don't even think he was the editor for a lot of these, by the way. I don't think he's the editor during this original West Side Tyler drama. I think he just watched. But yes.
Well, either way, don't
Kilo's
piss
got a
off your
memory.
editor.
Kilo's got a memory.
Stupid.
scoop, giving me firsthand testimony. I better make a mid YouTube video about it. Fucking unreal.
This video would be 2 hours long if I included all the clips of Sunday telling on himself from that stream, but I think you get the idea. Going further back, President Sunday harshly attacked Chud Logic because of Chud's editor DK, because as Sunday puts it, DK